Now that the first chapter of Eden Zero has come out and we know a little bit about our main characters of Shiki and Rebecca, there was some stuff that was being dropped in the first chapter that may even show where Shiki's power level can even go. From the first chapter we find out that he has this thing known as an ether gear, and that the one thing that he kind of specializes in is like ether gear or gravity. Now, gravity is a pretty powerful ability for having as a main character, and where we can guess where this power can kind of go, and kind of on the scale of like where he is compared to say like where Haru was from the start of Rave Master, where Natsu was at the start of the series, and seeing where it possibly it can go, and some of the techniques that he can do a lot more in the future. So we know so far with Shiki's abilities that he has an enhancement ability from his fist, where we see the Day Machina punch, where he's able to blow through like robots and machines, steel like it's almost nothing, able to create like craters. Like he's already been shown that he's quite like powerful and able to hold himself on his own. Like we haven't seen mainly his durability for the most part. Like although we have seen him being attacked by robots, we haven't seen him take a full-bloody blow compared to some other opponents. His seemingly like one of his most interesting components though has been the gravity ability, where he's been able to float on the airs, he's able to stick to walls, so he's going to have quite a bit of mobility. Unlike a lot of the other characters that we're seeing, he doesn't seem like he needs the ability to require to fly or any of this kind of stuff, because he can just float in the air, he can just grab to walls, and seemingly he can kind of go and take wherever he wants to go in some sort of destination. Now, where this potential power can go, I went back and looked at a couple of series and thinking, look at people with like, okay, with gravity-like abilities and kind of where we've seen with other, like, say, like Fairy Tail characters and Raid Master, and one series I kind of went back to, and people might know this series as I talked about it a good couple of years ago, and may know it by osmosis as I've mentioned it in one other series that I talk about, and a main character had that. And I'm talking about Hungry Joker, or as like the first series from Yuki Tabata, the creator of Black Clover. Now, there are a lot of people who don't know, this series was such a shame that this was a nice little sleeper hit, and it just didn't pick off the ground at all. And one of the most interesting things about this series in particular, compared to like his other series of Asta, is the main character Haiji actually had the ability to control gravity, and some of the stuff that Haiji was able to do due to this ability was quite fascinating. He was able to control objects around him. He was able to use it like the debris around him as like sort of like projectiles. He was able to control not only the gravity of himself but other people. He even got to the point where he was making like black holes, to this point where he was like constructing and demolishing like all like the gravity around it to kind of create this scenario. We don't where exactly Shiki is at the moment, where we've seen a small glimpse of like he's already powerful and he seemingly can handle himself in the most part, but he doesn't seem to be in a combat efficient state like we've seen with some of our other characters. Like from what we saw with Natsu, Natsu was already a high-ranking member of Fairy Tail when we saw him in Chapter 1. He already had years upon years of training himself with his magic, and he was able to use a bunch of different techniques from what we saw. Like, even if he was an S-class, he was still able to handle himself pretty well, majority. And then even as well with Haru we saw from the start was able to already had quite a bit of experience from him training when he was trying to find the rest of the swords along his journey. Now, I will say that so far, I think like with his ability, it depends on how clever he is in battle for the most part, like how he uses these abilities I would say like at the moment he probably like has around about the same destructive power levels as like Haru at the start of Raid Master, but he isn't as strong as what Natsu was at the start of Fairy Tail. I don't think he's going to be he could potentially even be stronger than Natsu depending on whether or not what he does with some of these techniques or not. Like you could say he could create black hole, he could destroy matter, he could crush people's bones just using the ability. Like we only have seen him use the gravity power though on himself. We've only ever seen him use that to stick to walls. We've only seen him use that for any like when he was traveling around with Rebecca, like when he was holding on. Like that's the only stuff we've seen so far. So we don't know to the full extent what he can do. Can he make objects float? Can he actually like use these things as projectiles, as we are mentioning? Like where does this particularly go with Shiki at the moment? And hopefully we'll find out more in the next following chapters what exactly he can do. I don't think we're going to get a clean answer just yet, as we still need to introduce a bunch of the worlds and the characters and where potentially that the story may be going at the moment. But I hope we see a few little glimpses of this in the future, and I definitely think if we could have something potentially of what like Haiji was doing in the series of like Hungry Joker, that is something I would very love to see, because there was some very great stuff that you can do with the abilities, and although immediately set up as pretty broken, like that ability of that kind of scale, I would like to see if there's some limits around it, where it's like he can only use it a certain amount of days, or like he has a time limit to it. Like, I feel like there's already going to be restrictions on some of the stuff that he does, and whether or not that's going to be Shiki's mind in general, because we can see that he is able to repair it. He has some sort of idea of what's going on with some of this stuff, but it depends how much the Demon King really taught him about his abilities, or was this something that he's just had to learn on the fly, like some of this stuff where it's like, I can just kind of work this out and see where this potentially goes. That's what I want to know. And then you also have to imagine where the rest of his team members work in this as well. Like, we don't know yet what Rebecca can mainly do. We don't know any about some of that centaur chick that we're seeing on there. There's that like silver-haired dude, like the guy with blonde hair. Like, all of these guys seem like capable fighters for the most part, but we don't know where they are. We don't even know personally if Rebecca is a fighter. So I'm gonna be very curious, like, as well. Like, we saw a lot of combination techniques in like Fairy Tail with like a lot of people like tag teaming and going against each other. So like, I would like to see like what they can potentially do with a lot of their abilities. That is something I would like to see, like Shiki's like at least pile up. But I would definitely say on a chapter 1 comparison of his 3 main series, I would say he could be potentially stronger than Haru is at the moment, depending where he is. But I don't think I think like Natsu could have taken him at the moment from like chapter 1 of Fairy Tail, where he was when he met Lucy. But overall, I want to know what you guys personally think in the comment section down below. Where do you think Shiki is at the moment and all that, and where do you think he can potentially go in the series? But that is all from me. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you guys though next time.